such a funny part of the beginning when I'm going live because it starts recording and streaming before I get the feedback that it is. But here we go. Welcome to the Women in Hip Hop Wednesdays podcast, season 2 pre-premiere. And I will get into, oh, wait, hold up. Let me slow down. When I get excited, I speed up, I move fast. I'm your host, Coco Pela, your music midwife and nerdy hip hop homegirl. I am a multi hyphenate hip hop artist, MC, singer, songwriter, record producer, songwriting coach, and I am probably the most relevant piece of information about me is I am ahead. I'm a Black woman in hip hop, and I love the culture, and I have set out to study and research and dialogue about women in hip hop, our history, our contributions, our stories, our lives. And y'all, this season is going to be so dope. So, before I get all the way into today's episode, we are doing a pre-premiere because Women in Hip Hop Wednesdays is actually moving to a different location, and it's a surprise location, and you will find out next week. And I wanted to have one last hurrah at my home podcasting studio, which is where, y'all have come and gotten used to having this time with me. So I wanted to welcome you in. Today is breaking down Perfect Love. Perfect Love is the first single off of my next studio album, Confessions of a Black Feminist Rapper Part 2, Trigger Warning. Trigger Warning is a part of this trilogy that I first started releasing in 2022 with Confessions of a Black Feminist Rapper Part 3, Elevate. It's a story and a journey that I am telling backwards. Now, it might be more like mysterious if I had just told the story backwards and let y'all fill in the blanks, but people are like, well, but why would you say part 3 and then part 2? So anyway, this part of our journey, and you can find that on all platforms, probably not for long because Spotify's got it coming. But for now, you can find Confessions of a Black Feminist Rapper Part 3, Elevate on all platforms. You can stream it for free. There's even a couple places on the internet you might be able to know. If you go to cocopela.com, COCOPEILA, you can actually download the singles off of the album in exchange for your email address. So for free. And let me see. I'll get more into my next studio album, Part 2, Trigger Warning, in a moment. But the first song off of the album is called Perfect Love, and it's heavy. This whole project, Trigger Warning, it's written for survivors. It's about being a survivor. I'm a survivor, and I'm a survivor on a path to thriving. For me, hip hop has been such a powerful, there's so many different adjectives or ways to describe it, but I know growing up, hip hop absolutely saved my life. It got me through so many dark times, challenging times, painful times, traumatic times. And it also helped me learn how to be an alchemist and how to transmute and transform my circumstances and conditions and emotional and mental state, physical state. Any heads in the audience know that when you're working on a graffiti piece, when you're writing a song, when you're beatboxing, when you're scratching a record, when you're making a beat, when you're dancing, when you're in the middle of the cipher, cutting up, whether you be, breakdancing or spitting, um, it literally has this spiritual property to be able to take you from one state of mind, one physical state, and bring you into a higher state, a more grounded state. It absolutely has the ability to regulate your nervous system. And, you know, back when I started it, the language around regulating our nervous systems and grounding our nervous systems and all that stuff wasn't out in the common public. I don't want to say lexicon because I've actually never used that word before. I find sometimes when I'm on these podcasts, suddenly I start using words I ain't never used before. So I'll try my best not to code switch or assimilate, but or just be someone that I'm not. But though that language wasn't out and about for the general public, and yet the brilliance and genius of the technologies, the ancient African technologies and the ancient indigenous technologies too, that have been weaved into the fabric of hip hop, have been present before Western, white, male, middle class, academic lenses and frameworks could comprehend them or articulate what they were doing. Do you know what I'm saying? Before, anyway, so for me, as an MC, I've been recording since I was 16. I've been rapping since I was young. I can think back to going to school at Marcus Garvey, I feel like it's like 6th and Slauson or something like that. I know the cross street was Slauson, and I remember, playing this game called Gigolo during recess. We didn't have like a playground, but up on maybe the 2nd or 3rd floor, something like that, because, it was right in the middle of a lot of action that was happening in LA. So there was a balcony, like a cement balcony with some railings so we wouldn't fall off. And we would just go out there in our red, black, and green uniforms, and we would jig hello, jig hello, and you would jump in. My name is Baba, and it's kind of like, even I would say like Shabuya, if you've ever played that game. So freestyling and rapping, there's so many ways that it already exists in Black African culture. That to say, like, I started rapping at what age? I know I started writing raps around that time when I was 11. But I didn't really consider myself an MC until I was 16. There was a very poignant turning point in my life with my sister, and we were at this place. I tell this story a lot because it was really definitely like a crossroads, and I keep thinking of these words that I never use. I'm like, impetus. It was a moment where it ended up shaping like the next 2 decades of my life as an MC, as an artist, as a woman, as a Black woman, as a Black girl back then. But I was 16. We were at a hip hop show at La Peña Cultural Center in South Berkeley. I don't remember whose show it was, but at the end, it was always, so this is the early aughts. If I was 16, it was like 0203. And at the end, whoever the closing act was, the male MCs, they were up on stage and they were like, is it any MCs in the audience? Is it any MCs in the audience? And all the guys my age and older were like, yeah, yeah, and crawled up on the stage, ran up on the stage. So there were like, I don't know, between 10 and 15 additional folks to whoever was hosting and on the mic and on the turntables. And my sister, my older sister, who's 19 years older than me, kept elbowing me and whispering in my ear. She's like, that's you, raise your hand, go up, get up. Like, what you mean? And I was too inhibited. I was too scared. I wasn't really a strong, that's my partner calling me. I wasn't really a strong freestyling artist. MC, hold up, let me go off camera because I don't want this to ring off the line. Hey, baby, I'm in the middle of film, like literally in the middle of live streaming the podcast. Did you get my text? And can you come at 4:45? I believe that we do have therapy at 5. But if you want to write her, anyway, I'm literally live streaming, so all our tea is now on the internet. Will you check and then text me back whether or not she confirms that we have therapy? Yes? So now y'all know my tea. Yes, I do believe in therapy. And yes, I do believe in couples therapy at that. Okay, my mic is tipping and tripping. But we gonna make it do what it do. Where was I? So she was elbowing me and she was like, and I do believe in black love, and I do believe in black love getting a couples therapy on. Um, okay. But this is real life. And one additional aside before we go back to our program, the programmed media, which is it's really interesting the way the universe works, right? Because what I was about to tell you is that I was really inhibited back then. Like, I didn't really feel like I was that good at freestyling, even though if I could pinpoint aspects of hip hop culture, but more so Black African culture, like the dozens, like Gigolo, like Shabuya, these games where you had to rhyme off the top of your head. Or if I think about even the fact that I started writing songs at 11 and could easily pen rhymes, I think that for me, a lot of this I would tie back to like early childhood trauma, being raised and socialized female and black. Um, I was someone who, and I feel like this sometimes does happen to MCs, where I was someone who all the trauma and a lot of like embarrassing, humiliating, scary moments in my childhood, the way that I used that or I coped or I handled that was with, sorry, my earrings is clicking and knocking, writing. I got a journal around that same time, right before I moved to Pasadena and went to school in LA. And having that place to go and be yourself and just stream of consciousness, write your thoughts and poems and raps and songs, and have a friend who couldn't give you advice, couldn't criticize you, couldn't embarrass you, couldn't betray you. The journal, the rhyme book, to just pour my heart into was something that I was starving for growing up in the way that I did. My voice wasn't encouraged and welcomed in a lot of ways, and I learned to go hiding deep within myself. this pre-premiere episode of season 2, I thought that before I get into my super researcher mode, super interviewer mode, um, I wanted to just tap in with y'all and share a little bit more of myself, which as as vulnerable and open-hearted as I am, it has been really hard for me to come out of hiding from that spot that I went back to. And I think being an MC for me eventually became this way that I could come out of hiding, standing in my true power, speaking truth to power, saying what I really thought, waxing poetic, flexing my brilliance, but with armor. And when you're in a situation where you're so disempowered, I grew up with a lot of addiction, a lot of substance abuse. We didn't always have a roof over our head. I didn't always go to sleep with food in my stomach. I didn't always go to school with clean clothes or clean drawers, or my hair did. You know, I think I said there was a lot of violence, physical violence, verbal, emotional. It was just like a very dangerous and scary environment for a small child to grow up in. And my story is not unique. And so when I say I'm a survivor, I say it I say it from a place of, we've all survived something. And being an MC has been such a powerful, transformative experience for me. Expression, lineage, like there's so many ways I could describe it, but freestyling, I've always had so much respect for the MCs that battle rap, folks like Roxanne Shante, folks like Sparky D, I think about Snoop Dogg, who is an incredible freestyle rapper. I think about Eminem as a battle rapper. I think about, there's so many different folks. I'm thinking about, a lot of the MCs that I grew up being inspired and in awe of. I'm thinking about Jadakiss. I'm thinking about Royce the 5'9". I'm thinking about Nas. I'm thinking about just like the MCs that could let off the top of their dome. And it's, we think about Freestyle Fellowship on the West Coast. And the sisters, who were able to do it. I'm like Jean Grey, Raw Digga, Bahamadia. Like, I'm thinking about different folks, but there is a certain level actually of like courage and vulnerability to me in freestyling, because you don't have it memorized. You're not necessarily, for me, I didn't have that skill and couldn't figure out how to build it in a way that I felt confident to showcase it. And many a time, you have to be willing to go out there and be shitty at something and look crazy and stumble and fumble and be bad first before you can be good. And this era, after 22 years of recording, I'm 38 now. I started recording raps when I was 16. I decided to really take on this calling that just would not leave me alone, about becoming an MC and going from having my rhymes be something that I spit to myself on my way walking home from Berkeley High, to and fro from Berkeley High, or writing in my journal, or maybe sharing with my friends on the back of the bus. Um, when I was going to Summit Middle School, K through 12, back in the day in Seattle, shout out Seattle. I'm a West Coast girl for real, although I moved around a lot. Um, and now I'm ready to come out of hiding, and that includes being, you know, being in the process, being out and open in the process. So anyway, um, it's interesting because the story I'm telling is about that moment where I just wasn't willing to get up there. And maybe if I had been willing to get up every single time, whether it was whack or whether it was dope or whether it grew and grew, maybe I would have built that skill to be a solid skill. I've gone through periods where I freestyled more or less, and it has gotten stronger. But um, at that moment at La Peña Cultural Center at 16 years old or 15, whatever it was, I think it was 16, um, when my sister was elbowing me, she's like, get up. And I was like, no, no. And I was giggling and I was, hiding. And she whispered something in my ear that truly changed my life. And she said, the only reason that they call what you do poetry is because you're a girl. And it lit a fire under my ass and put a battery in my back that honestly was enough to fuel me, like I said, for the next 20 years, maybe even 22 years. And it's only more recently that I've gone back to that 16-year-old and told her thank you, and also even thanked my sister in that moment and the fire that got lit, and kind of reevaluated and integrated the different values that I have and the different, like, what motivates me now, 22 years into recording my rhymes, performing my rhymes. And it's not that I haven't found it. Y'all can scour social media and the internet and find live footage of me performing. You can go on all the streaming platforms, and you can even find some of my work studied in Ivy League colleges, which doesn't necessarily make it stronger. I know that that's a status marker, but the Ivy Leagues, no shade, are often real late to the party, right? Because of white supremacy, anti-Black racism, sexism, classism, elitism, or whatever. Like, those institutions were built to gatekeep and keep certain people out. So just because my work and collaborations have been studied in Ivy League colleges, and different universities and colleges, primarily in the US, that I know of, doesn't mean that it's better, but what it does mean is that, like, I've contributed a significant body of work to the culture. I've been fed and nourished and healed by this culture. I am hip hop. I don't always talk about, my story, where I came from, and I'm a West Coast girl. I'm a light-skinned Black woman. I'm a mixed heritage Black woman. Um, I'm quirky. I'm nerdy. There's a lot of things that, like, stereotypically people might say, oh, like, are you hip hop, or what makes you, kind of like think that you are the one who can speak on women in hip hop. And I think the thing that qualifies me is that, I am a woman in hip hop, and I've been contributing and loving and learning and growing, as a scholar and a practitioner, um, particularly of the word, and using that powerful energy that power, that I don't want to say magic, but that power that is in our words and the vibration and intonations in our words to speak truth to power, to unite people, to elevate the this might sound super woo woo West Coast, but this is truly how I see it as a MC, as a mistress of ceremonies, a master of ceremonies, however you want to say it. When I step out on the stage, I have a capacity to hold the energy of the entire room, whether it's 5 people or whether it's, you know, 50,000 people. Music is not mine and mine alone. Hip hop is not mine and mine alone, but I stand on the shoulders of thousands and thousands of ancestors, thousands and thousands of years back, who have been wielding this genius technology for healing, connecting, focusing, shifting the energy, building community, right? Like, and I take it seriously. And so that's what qualifies me. It's not that I know everything or even that I'm hella well connected. Within the hip hop community, it's not that I've been certified by our mothers and fathers. I haven't won a Grammy. I have music that's been played on the radio, but not mainstream hits. I've never gotten a billion streams or, not on the Billboard charts. I have influenced and had songs and lyrics taken, but what qualifies me is that I'm of the people. And to me, I heard Mos Def say many years ago, I can't remember if it was in an interview or whatnot, but he was like, hip hop music is folk music, and I was like, what? Like, okay, most can say that because he doesn't have a white mama. Like, I can't be out here saying that shit. But it was really deep because it was like, right, like, when he released Black on Both Sides, there was an intro and he talks about, or an interlude, but I think it was an intro where he talks about people talking about hip hop like it's like this mountain, this giant that lives over there in the mountains, and like, what's going on with hip hop, and what do you think hip hop will do next, and he's like, we are hip hop, we are both the call and the response, right? We are both the mirror and the reflection of life, of reality, of oppression, of liberation, of history, of the future, right? I've taken that call real seriously, and that's what qualifies me to be your music midwife and nerdy hip hop homegirl that's gonna go on this next, chapter 2, season 2 of this journey with you. All that being said, it's 4:40, and it seems like my man has texted me to let me know that couples therapy has been rescheduled. So I'm gonna assume that unless he come knocking on the door, in which we'll wrap up. But my next studio album, Trigger Warning, which is a part of the Confessions of a Black Feminist Rapper trilogy, is a project written by a survivor for survivors. It is intentionally created as medicine for the wounds and the struggles that we go through. I started writing it in my 20s as I was observing the shockwaves from my childhood trauma show up in my relationships of all types, not just romantic relationships and dating, but like all my relationships, coping mechanisms, like all that. And I've always thought that it was only sexism in the world that then showed up in hip hop that made it so that women, at least, I was born in 1987. So I came up during a time where a lot of my access to hip hop was from the radio or from television, TV. Um, so it was a while before I became a teenager and was like out and about, and could go to functions and could get into the studio and could collaborate with artists and all that shit and experience the culture in that way. And so when I came up, there were female MCs that were portraying more than just one narrative or like trope or archetype or whatever, but also um, coming of age in my 20s, there was this moment where Kim was out, right? And then there was a lull in Kim's career for many reasons. We didn't see her in that way for a while. Like we weren't getting music from her or so on and so forth. And then Nicki Minaj appeared on the scene. And I'm not saying Nicki Minaj was the only woman in the world. For those of us that were plugged in on the underground, or even just not the mainstream, right? But like there were other women that we were following, but to see a woman being propped up with the mainstream machine was very exciting for me, I know. And what was apparent and what has been apparent after the rise and success of Nicki Minaj, who came from a lineage of female MCs who embraced a certain type of sexuality and high femininity and presentation. Um, it felt for me, moving from my teens into my 20s, like I was at a house party where there was a certain expectation about how I should dress and look and talk and what I could talk about to be accepted, to be able to grab the mic and to be received and responded to in a certain way within the mainstream, or like to have any chance at having mainstream success. It felt like, okay, there's this one lane, particularly even like for me as a light-skinned woman, how they're gonna be like, oh, she's dope, she's raw. And I wholly and totally rejected that lane, or for the most part, I would say. Um, and I had this thought that echoed in my mind for years. I feel like the whole time I've been an MC, which is like, if I was a man or a boy, I would be able to tell my whole life story. Like when I finally really discovered Nas, because when I was coming up, like first grabbing the mic, we were still having the conversation like, who's the best rapper alive? Who's a better rapper, Nas or Jay-Z? I remember when Nas dropped Ether. Like this is like some of the landscape that I was in, even on the West Coast in the Bay Area. Um, I initially was a Jay girl. Um, and I can't say that was Jay is phenomenal as an MC, and even I saw footage of him before he like blew up, and seeing that his skill and pen even before that, like back in the Jazzo days, I was like, oh my God. I remember talking to a mentor of mine in like 0304 about like Nas versus Jay, and I really didn't know Nas's discography well enough to comment, and I think I should have said that. I think I should have said, you know what? I don't really know bruh's discography. Like, let me go back. Like, I've heard the hits, right? I've seen certain music videos, but like, I haven't really, as a scholar, as a head, gone back and like listened from Illmatic all the way to, hip hop is dead. And that was around the time where this conversation was happening. I think hip hop is dead was either coming out, and this was like Nas's, rollout and promo, and everybody was clutching their pearls like, how could he say this? And so it was like Nas or Jay-Z. And I gave a really uneducated response about why I chose Jay. Fast forward, how many years? I would say like 3 years or something, 4 years maybe. I had a homeboy from Philly who I was going to school with, and he was like, Ayo, have you heard Nas's new album, Life is Good? And I was like, no. But because I had a really deep connection with my homeboy, I had to listen to it. And that's how I've always related to music, right? Like, I have to experience it, and it could be the Aquarian in me, but I have to experience it and feel it for myself. Just because you tell me it's dope, if I don't feel it, I don't feel it, and I'm not going to pretend. But if I feel it, and also if I have an emotional connection, which is definitely not the Aquarian, I'm not going to tell you what part of my chart that is. If I have an emotional bond or connection and someone tells me, oh my God, I'm having this emotional experience with this artistic piece, then now I'm going to go cop the album, listen to it, live with it. And I listened to Life is Good, and I was like, it was probably Daughters that I was like, yes, like, look at this social analysis. Like, look at this way that he's like talking about his life and talking about, basically for me, it felt like a somewhat like Black feminist analysis, like as a man, as a male MC, talking about what it's like to be a Black man who's been a player and to have a daughter and realize now she has to navigate this world that you navigated as a Black man and as a player, and now she has to navigate that same world, but as a Black girl growing up to be a Black woman. And I absolutely like fell in love with it. Not to say that I wasn't aware of his greatness or his skill or other songs. From there, I was like, I have been sleeping on Nas. And I went back to the very, very beginning. I reached out to homies. I'm like, what's your favorite track? Are there any like obscure hidden tracks that, you can't really find nowhere? And the homies like, filled in the gaps. And I was like, oh my God. And I think shortly after that, I also, around that time, well, I had discovered Kendrick in like 07, 08, because my partner at the time was like, have you heard of Kendrick? That's around the same time I discovered Rhapsody. And then maybe it was like 2011 or 2012 when I discovered Cole. Like, Cole had music out, but like, what was it? Illuminati or something. But anyway, I just feel like I was listening to Nicki and I was like, wow, like she can rap her ass off. Like the way, like the geometry in her rhyme structure, like she's ill as fuck. But like there was something for me that was missing because I'm such an emotional being. I want to know you as a person. I want to know your perspective. I want to know what you see when you look outside your window. And she very well may have been rapping about who she was as a person, what she was seeing when she stepped outside, because she was blowing up in this major way. But I was like, and it's not just Nicki. I was just like, why? How come we can't do that? Like, how come we, like the way that Nas is talking about his life and his emotions and, like his substance abuse struggles and relationship drama and messiness, and like why can't we do that? Like, why do we have to be confined to this either like, I don't know, kind of holier than thou earth mama trope or like the bad bitch trope? And that's not knocking nobody who's working that trope. Like, there's a time and a place for most music, and I listen to all the girls. I do. I love women in hip hop, But for me, the kind of person that I am, I felt limited by a trope. I felt like I would really have to put a mask on, and I just felt like I couldn't do it. Like I would be self-abandoning and betraying myself in a certain way that I didn't have a tolerance for. And also, hip hop has always been a place where I came to unmask, to bare my heart, to really like lay down my burdens. And so it's the idea of like, oh God, and now I'm gonna have to like get done up and hide in a certain way. And not to say that I'm never done up, but I'm done up when I'm done up authentically. So. Um, okay, and soon we're gonna get into perfect love. But I'm wanting to give you a picture of like where my mindset was at. Was really coming out of a really, or in, and then coming out of a really toxic relationship, and realizing that the early childhood trauma that I had experienced, the abuse, the neglect, the financial, housing instability, the all the things, had really, despite me like having a intellectual understanding and having even done a lot of emotional work on myself, I really thought that I was further along my healing journey than I was. And when I saw some of those themes from my childhood and from the intergenerational trauma in my family on both my mom and my dad's side showing up, particularly in the romantic relationships, but in other ones as well, I was like, ah, I want to talk about this. I want to tell this story. And I'm not the first one. That's why we talk about lineage in hip hop, right? I come from the lineage of Queen Latifah and Lauryn Hill. I come from this lineage of, to me, Roxanne Shante. Like, there's in season 1, if you haven't watched it, go back and watch it, because I might even, hide some off the internet in a little bit. But all of these women talked about being Black and female and navigating the world, and made anthems, empowering anthems that at the time maybe weren't called feminist, or Black feminist, or womanist, or intersectional feminist, or any of those things, but that is what it is. Like UNITY by Queen Latifah, that is a fucking Black feminist anthem. I think about Mos Def's New World Water. That is a climate justice anthem, right? Just because they didn't necessarily have the, like, I don't know, positioning or language of like, I'm a climate justice rapper. Like, and I think about that a lot, because I think that I have for many years used my music as a way to amplify messages from different areas of the movement, always for one goal, which is the complete liberation of all people, all of my family, across every line, the complete liberation. I want liberation for the fascists. You hear what I'm saying? I want liberation for the people who don't want liberation for me, because those people, I believe, are lost. Like, I believe they are lost. I believe they are sick. I want liberation for them. I want healing for them. I want it for all people. I think all of us are natural allies to one another. Even the groups of us that have been pitted against each other are made to feel like if one group gets the mic and gets to talk about their struggle, it dismisses and invisibilizes the other. I don't believe that. I believe that we all get to pass the mic around the cipher and talk about our perspective, our experience. 4:56. Oh no, is couples therapy gonna happen? But that's always been my goal, the complete liberation of all people, the healing, liberation, and elevation of the planet Earth and its people and the ancestors, because some of them died, took their last breath in ways that did not honor the calling that was on their crown. Y'all know what I'm saying? Some of our ancestors died in ways that they shouldn't. You can't tell me this is how it should have unfolded. Um, and so they need help too in elevation, and that's the beauty of music. Music is like time travel, and we can do a lot of healing for all parties involved. um, I'm like, should we take a commercial break? Um, so yes, we'll take a quick commercial break before I play you Perfect Love. I want to, of course, invite you to the listening party, which happens every single Thursday on Zoom. And I'm going to be announcing some new exciting things about that. But I'll talk about that in a moment. First, though, trigger warning was me get passing that little girl the mic, passing that teenage girl the mic and saying, no, mama, you have a voice and you get to be heard, and I'm here now. So they not gonna fuck with you because I'm here now. So go ahead and say what you want to say. Speak your truth. And also share how you got through it, how you healed from it, what you're still struggling with. Share your experience and your perspective. Because when we do that, it invites and inspires others to do so. My goal isn't that me, Coco Pela, my voice is the only voice, that my perspective is the right perspective, that my story is the only story. I want the voices of Black women and girls across the globe, throughout the diaspora, back to the continent of Africa, for our voices and perspectives to be resourced, invested in with money and resource, to be amplified. And that's, if you go back and you look at my writings and posts and initiatives that I've done and collaborations I've done with organizations, or times where I've worked at organizations and brought hip hop into the organization, or done music projects with the organization, you can look back at my journey and see that over the decades it's been the same, North Star. And I center Black women and girls because in the scheme of one of our newer systemic oppressions, not just anti-Black racism, the systemic oppression of racism, that is a system of oppression that was created in order to justify the pillaging and domination and exploitation and extracting of resources from, Africa, from the Americas, from Asia, from places outside of the West and outside of Europe, and then also in the West, right? The United States is in the West, and the attempted genocide and an attempted erasure of the indigenous people here in the Americas is part of that, right? So there's like the mechanisms of attempted genocide and erasure, and then there's also racism, and in that within that system of oppression, racism, there's documentation that there was a hierarchy created, and Black, Negroid, was placed at the bottom, and Caucasoid, European, what we've come to understand as white, was placed at the top, and the other brown folks were placed somewhere in the middle. And that was done deliberately to justify. Let's see, maybe it is couples therapy, and we're gonna have to do a part 2. Give me a second. Hey, baby. Can you hear me? Is he pocket dialing me? Hello? Almost. You outside? Okay. I'm gonna unlock the door. I'm about to play Perfect Love, but I'm wrapping up. Do we have therapy? Oh, okay. Love you. I'm about to unlock the door. Okay, hopping off. Ooh, he said, yes, we do. All right. So, because of that, okay, because of that, also, and because of the the 6,000 or 6,000 year legacy of sexism, or what a lot of people call patriarchy. I call it sexism and male domination, but the creation of patriarchy and that systemic oppression, which basically justified, creating the slave class, having women be a slave class under classism, because somebody got to be exploited. There's got to be free labor under classism for the 1%, for the owning class to do what they do, because they're not finna do the work. And so we can get more into that later, but then the combination of to be a woman or a girl and to be black puts you at the bottom, And so to me, I believe that by amplifying and censoring the voices and stories and perspectives and genius and contributions of black women and girls, we actually create an environment where everyone gets to be kind of right sized and amplified and respected and supported and resourced, right? Because if you break um, that structural thing aspect. Sorry, I'm ruffled because I'm like, he about to come in. We haven't done Perfect Love yet. Um, but yeah, if you bust that apart, then it creates space for a different structure, a structure of liberation, a system of liberation, a system of cooperation, of collaboration. And yeah. And so I think that the telling of my story, especially as someone who has spent a lot of my years organizing, through art, um, and um, collaborating with different organizations and creators who also prioritize organizing, my story and the things that I went through, I've always seen them as separate. I think because of the sexism, like, oh, that's just my personal story, my personal failing, my personal messiness. And so with trigger warning, it's my kind of coming to like, actually, no, like, this is a key part. Black women and girls telling our stories, what we survived, how we survived them, the impacts they had, are, and sharing our socio-political analysis, but also our social analysis, and our solutions, is absolutely what we need for liberation. We're not going to be able to do it if we need black women and girls to suffer in silence in the shadows and put and mask and cape, in movement spaces and liberation spaces and academic spaces and corporate spaces and any space. The liberation is not going to happen that way. So anyway, my partner's about to come in the house, but we'll do a part 2 maybe tomorrow, and I'll share Perfect Love with y'all, and we'll break down the lyrics. But this has been the pre-premiere part 1, and I guess I'll get into maybe we'll do Perfect Love next Wednesday. So let's do breaking down Perfect Love next Wednesday. Hip hop is a conversation. So what the fuck is you saying? What are you saying? What's the call? What's the response? And as always, I love y'all. For real, for real. Come on in, baby. Don't be scared. The apartment looks crazy.